Today on the Travel Magazine, join us as we travel to South Africa, where we'll visit the Cape Province and its world-famous wine estates. For more than 300 years, the Cape Vinelands have been the birthplace of exceptional wines. Hi, I'm Jake de Boer.
And I am Mieke de Boer, and welcome to this edition of the Travel Magazine.
Join us today as we travel along a wine route, visiting historic Cape Dutch, as well as family-run estates that flourish between the mountains and valleys of the most southern tip of Africa. Right in the heart of the wine route is the 5-star Grand Wash Hotel.
So tell me about this wonderful hotel. When did it all start?
Mieke, the hotel is now just over 3 years old. It dates back to 1707 when the Dutchman Hermanus Bosman arrived here and was granted this farm. So it's a very historical site.
You know, we must have visited you about 7 months after you opened, and we stayed the first time in this building on the left. What building is that actually?
Jake, that's the old slave quarters. It was originally built in 1707 as the slave quarters. You have the jail here where the naughty slaves were put away, but obviously in more recent times it was used for keeping farm implements and fodder and so on.
And the building on the right?
On the right hand side you've got the old wine cellar, also dating back to 1707. It was one big barn, and this was a very active wine cellar.
We are ready to go, and what is the situation on the car?
I'm very pleased to tell you that your Avis Mercedes-Benz is polished and ready to go and take you through the winelands.
You know that you always have a problem with running out of gas.
Mieke, when you rent a car, it always comes with a full tank. Since the new South Africa began, how has that affected the wine industry?
Well, Jake, I think it exceeded our wildest expectations. A lot of markets, not only did markets open, which were closed before, but when the elections came early in 1994, when I think the outside world realized that, yes, South Africa is really a new South Africa, our exports just took off like a jet plane.
But what is KWV actually?
Just out of interest, it's one of the largest wineries in the world, definitely the largest in the Southern Hemisphere. It is a cooperative, which means it's being owned by the producers. Mm-hmm. And in our country, it's all the producers, some 4,500 of them, are members, or the shareholders is the better word, of KWV. Laborie is one of the historic estates, and as you can see, it really is a very beautiful estate. In 1975, KWV decided to purchase this estate, and they have built it up to be a model to show what our industry can really produce, not only in the wines it produces, but also in the area and the homesteads, because you do find many setups like this.
So Jake, you know, I would like to go and visit Kanonkop. Not only are they very known for their Pinotage wines, but it is people that we have met before, and they are keeping inviting us to come and join them for a snoep barbecue.
Okay.
Hi, hello. Now I'm fine.
Good. Nice to see you.
Yes.
Johan, welcome. Yeah, nice to see you again. So how's our Pinotage doing in Canada?
I hope very well. You know,
Kanonkop is probably the estate where Pinotage has been reborn, and Kanonkop really made Pinotage's name well known again.
at the end of the day, our host Johan Krüger at Kanonkop served us a snoepbraai, a real South African delicacy. Do you make the best Pinotage in South Africa?
This is a matter of taste. You know, we try to produce probably one of the better pinotages in South Africa. The two important factors on producing a good quality pinotage is number one, it should grow on bush vines. Secondly, it should not be irrigated. And thirdly, I think it should have sufficient skin contact.
Whoops.
This is a typical Cape traditional food from South Africa called snoek. We add a little bit of wine to it occasionally.
Oh, I noticed you're not taking your good pinotage.
No, we can't do that. Now, this is cheap white wine that we buy from our neighbors.
Oh, I see.
We've got the oldest vines in the country, and that gives very good flavors and colors. But to sum it up, I would say pinotage is a wine made of women's tongues and lion's hearts. After drinking a sufficient quantity of it, one can talk forever and fight the devil. That's pinotage. And if you believe in that, you'll enjoy it every night. 2 glasses at least.
Go drink
Cheers.
that. Cheers.
Cheers.
We will be back with more of the Travel Magazine just after this, so stay with us. So Jake, let me at least open the map, because you know I can't read maps, and I told you that before I got married, that I can't, but I can open the map.
You're right,
Here
darling.
at the wrong side, so here is where we have to be.
Okay, where are we starting off?
What about Rust en Vrede?
Rust en Vrede with Jannie Engelbrecht,
That's right.
the famous rugby player.
Yeah, and he's still very much involved in rugby,
Okay.
and the rugby and wine go together.
Okay, then we are going to Van Loveren.
And you know why I want to visit that?
Why?
Because there is a lady, Mrs. Retief, that is 85 years old, and she has a paradise of trees. For every occasion in the world, she plants a tree. Jake, let's go and be romantic on this trip. Rust en Vrede.
Rust and Vrede, you can feel the tranquility. Translated directly, then it means rest and peace.
Peace, yeah.
Don't make a mistake, it's not rest in peace. I started playing international rugby in 1960. Those years, it was easy for us to travel, and we traveled the rugby playing world.
Yeah.
France, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and we did travel a lot those years. It was easy, no sanctions, no political problems whatsoever, and it was enjoyable. You know, in this country, rugby is it's like a religion, and when you play international rugby or you play for your country, and then of course, then you belong to the public, you belong to the media.
Yeah. Tell me, how does a rugby player end up in this beautiful wine farm?
When you are young, you must have your goals set in life. You must have your ideas, what you want to do and achieve one day. And because I took an interest in this kind of and way of life, I decided that I wanted to buy a place like this. The winemaking process was, I think, around about early 1900. It was terminated, and then once I bought it in 78, I restarted the whole winemaking process. It is of paramount importance to make your own blend, and people can realize that that comes from this part of the world. The terroir, the soil, the climatic conditions, it's different to France. And the wine is really taken on because it is a special wine and it represents the Stellenbosch region.
The Van Loveren estate was our next stop, where Mieke was really looking forward to speaking with Mrs. Retief, a woman full of energy and stories.
We came to live here in 1939, and the first tree I planted for a big event was that Norfolk pine. We planted VE Day, 9th of May 1945. There were no trees when we came here, and I was young and had very little money, but I started ordering trees. When I planted the tree, if possible, I wanted the name of the tree to be appropriate to the occasion. I also plant trees for important people like our own Jannie Smuts and Golda Meir from Israel, and I planted one for Evie de Klerk, and I planted one for Mandela, because he's now a world figure.
Yeah.
And last month the winemakers of the world were here, and they said they wanted to plant a tree in the garden because it was the first time the winemakers visited South Africa. So they brought a tree. The sky is the limit. It's planted over there. There's a plaque where they presented it to me, and I had to make a speech. So I said to them that I hope that the sky would be the limit for the sales of the South African wines.
My mother was van Zyl, and the first van Zyl that came to the country in 1692 was married to Christina van Looferen from Holland.
Yes.
And my mother quite liked the name, and she started calling the farm Van Looferen, but it really didn't sort of become Van Looferen until we started bottling in 1980.
So how do you taste a wine? Here we now have some of your Chardonnay in a glass. What do? You smell it? Show me how you do it.
Well, first you take the glass, you swirl it, and you pick up the different flavors or the bouquet in the wine, and then you taste it. And then you got to do a bit of spitting too, because you can't, if you're a winemaker, you can't keep on drinking everything you taste.
Now, the estate de Wetsoff has won many medallions for their Chardonnay, I understand. So let's do a quick tour and turn in there. What is it, Nicky?
I just want to check the gas.
Darling, I filled up last night, totally, so we're fine.
It was in 1987, and they had, I think if I remember correct, about 900,000 wines in 21 different categories. And so we actually won the one category, was Chardonnay. And then it went to the University of Bordeaux, where they actually put the 21 winners against each other, and then we won the Grand Prix de Honneur for the best wine on the exhibition. And so we actually were the last with the title of Grand Prix de Honneur.
What is your relationship with KWV?
All wine farmers in South Africa are actually a member of the KWV. I supply the KWV with Chardonnay. So some of the Chardonnays that we don't use for our own labels, we also use for the labels of the KWV. The KWV also handles the export of our wines in certain countries, like for instance the Canadian market.
The oldest wine estate in South Africa is Groot Constantia.
We are right here where it all began with the wines. You know, we are really coming up to the manor house.
Yes.
This is the Cape houses. You know, you look at the designs,
Yes.
and it must do something for you, because this is how it was in the olden days.
Yeah.
Groot Constantia today is the mother of the wine industry. This is where it started, and Groot Constantia today, all over the world, is known. And it was people such as Napoleon Bonaparte and King Louis Philippe of France who demanded the wines of Groot Constantia. King Louis Philippe of France was the biggest single wine buyer of Constantia wines. In 1925, we had a huge fire here. And this is the architect, Kendall, who then restored it to its former glory. Yes.
This is how I see it today.
That's right. We did lots of renovations and restorations here on the farm, bringing it back all to its former glory and for everybody to enjoy.
The moat.
That's right. Now this was used during the time of the Cloties And what they do, as you see these barrels outside, because at that time, of course, they didn't have taps like what we have today. So a lot of the water came down from the mountain, and as it came down into this moat, so what they would do is then clean out the barrels.
So Jake, now we have visited today Groot Constantia, you know, the first and largest estate in the Cape. And you know what? Why don't we go on and visit some smaller estates?
Well, we'll follow the wine route, we'll get in the car, and we'll be back with more of the travel magazine on the wine route of the Cape right after this. So stay with us. The KWV Cathedral Cellar receives over 20,000 visitors annually.
Isn't it beautiful? Oh, this is a typical autumn day in the Cape Winelands.
The Cathedral Cellar was started in 1930. It was one of our first cellars we built. You'll notice it has a barrel vaulted roof, like a cathedral. In fact, Jake, we refer to this as the Cathedral of Wine, because this is where we mature our very best red wines. Our top quality wines are the Cathedral Cellar range. They're the premium. It's the pinnacle of our range of wines that we produce. And because it is such a top quality product, we only produce about 10,000 cases in total.
Really?
So whoever is lucky enough to get some of the wine, we should appreciate it.
Good, so I smell it.
It's very fruity. And then you take a little bit in your mouth.
What is this?
This is called a spittoon. If you have to go through 20 or 25 wines at a tasting, you cannot swallow it all, so you have to spit it.
On these barrels we have carvings. The carvings are done by a very famous German carver, and the history of the South African wine industry is in fact depicted on the faces of the barrels. This will hold about 10,000 litres, which is close on 12,000 bottles.
Rustenburg is a beautiful estate. It dates back 300 years.
Jake, you know, I don't want to nag about this, but it is very low.
Don't worry.
In 1992, we celebrated 300 years of wine production on the farm here. We have under vines 65 hectares at the moment, and that gives us enough grapes to produce about 15 to 20,000 cases of wine. And we do mainly red wines, mainly Cabernet and Cabernet blends. There are quite a few things that play a role in making the best Cabernet in the country. It is a combination of terroir, which includes the soils, the climate, and the vines, especially the age of the vines plays a big role as well. And I think the consistency in a winemaking style. We feel that with an old vine, the roots go much deeper into the soil, so they can get the nutrients deep down where the real quality lies and where other vineyards which are actually younger cannot reach.
If people come visiting South Africa, Can they come up here anytime and taste the wine?
Although we're not in the wine route specifically, which is a little bit more tourist orientated, we are certainly open for wine tasting, and it's open for anybody.
Our last stop is the Bucksburg Estate, and I think that I may have just enough gas to get us there.
The farm is called Klein Babylon Sturen, which means small tower of Babylon. Historically, this farm and our neighbor's farm was one, and it was just called Babylon Sturen. So when this part was sold off many, many years ago, this became Klein, which is Afrikaans for small. We believe that everything we do should have a export component to it. The country needs foreign exchange, and that's one of the things that we believe we should do.
Tell me now, if you look from here, is that not the Paul Mountain there?
Yeah, this is the back of Paul Rock.
When it rains, they tell me it's like it shines.
Yeah,
the whole rock shines.
When it rains and after the rain has gone and it's busy drying off and the sun comes onto it, it shines like a pearl.
Pearl.
Yeah.
And that is where the name from Paul really comes from. But this is a beautiful view you actually have here. You're actually overlooking the whole Paul. Oh, is there something wrong?
The engine has stopped, Maker.
It's not gas, eh?
It is. Well, that's it for this edition of the Travel Magazine. From the Cape region in South Africa, I'm Jake de Boer.
And I'm Mieke de Boer. Tot ziens. Jake, it's just around the corner.
I hope so.